responsible for the blast, Anthony Warner, mailed a package to someone in Murfreesboro just days before the bombing. Investigative reporter Ben Hall shares exclusive details about what was inside.
At one point, he writes to his friend about reptilians and lizard people that he believed control Earth and had tweaked human DNA. Warner wrote, they put a switch into the human brain so they could walk among us and appear human.
Police say Gentry told them he tried to kill his father because a, quote, shape-shifting reptile had taken over. Gentry had been hospitalized and was recently released and arrested on an attempted murder scene.
A hidden hand manipulating humanity's destiny through the shadows, using those who seem to be in power. And the goal of these shadow people? Nothing less than an Orwellian global superstate with total control at the hands of an ancient reptilian shapeshifting race.
You know, you look like you're
Reptilian sounds weird. It sounds fantasy. It sounds something that strange people with strange ideas locked away in their parents' basement or out in the woods alone somewhere would fixate on or come up with. But now, the concept of reptilian, of shapeshifters, is not as strange as it one time was. In fact, in some ways, it has become mainstream, or at least mainstreamer, than it ever has been before. That there are beings, reptilian in nature and constitution, that are ruling the world, violently, quietly from behind the scenes, ruling. That there are dark agents of another dimension guiding and diluting the affairs of mankind for countless millennia. Well, that concept has gained more traction than it ever has before in human history, except in the places that actually knew them all too well. Places like Babel, Acadia, Sumer, Egypt, Sodom, China. Seemingly, this concept that was buried by the Age of Enlightenment and the Industrial Revolution has been resurrected. It has been known by many names and in many different lores and legends, but now it has come to be known commonly as the Reptilian Shapeshifter theory, the crown jewel of all the conspiracy theories. Of course, if you believe your Bible. And by believe, I don't mean the kind of belief centered around the idiots of modern mainstream Christianity.
Oh, Lord. Yes, Lord.
Get my toy. You know I like to illustrate stuff. It ain't sulfuric acid, it's just water. Now this is called the Drenchinator. I'm praying about whether to follow through on this illustration. And I hear the Lord say, yes!
I mean a belief in the very text, in the very words of the authorized version. Well, if you are a Bible believer, then there is no quote-unquote theory of conspiracy. There is only a fact of conspiracy. And the very fact that the Garden of Eden opens with a reptile. The book of Revelation ends with a reptile. The Bible itself is filled with reptiles, and the truth of the matter is reptilian symbols are all over the world in all different legends across all anthropological borders and boundaries. These are not passing and fanciful symbols. No, they are realities, descriptions of things beyond our norm of sight and sense. But though they are beyond our norm, they are there nonetheless. A world in which there is a powerful cabal of other dimensional beings, in some way and in some sense connected with the reptile world. And call it what you may, it is as much a reality as one could possibly imagine. Exactly what is the reptilian conspiracy theory? Well, at the risk of being boilerplate, the truth is, Wikipedia does an actual pretty good job of giving one a primer and an introduction to the issue of reptilians, also known as reptoids, lizard people, draconians. They are supposed reptilian humanoids, the article writes, which play a prominent role in fantasy, science fiction, UFOlogy, we'll come back to that, and conspiracy theories themselves. The idea of reptilians was popularized by David Icke, a conspiracy theorist who claims shape-shifting reptilian aliens control Earth by taking on human form and gaining political power to manipulate human societies. Icke has stated on multiple occasions that many world leaders are or are possessed by so-called reptilians. Now, as far-fetched as that sounds, if one reads the Bible for what it says, not as Beth Moore does, but actually reads the Bible for what it says, well, what you'll find and what you'll see is that behind many of the actual rulers mentioned in the Bible is a being, something higher, something darker, working through that ruler in some sense and power. In fact, the very key figures of the Bible, such as Judas, were associated in that way. A man, yes, but more than a man, a devil, a spirit, a being. And so when we come across something like David Icke, while we certainly don't agree with everything that he says by any stretch of the imagination, we do wonder if where there's smoke, there might not be fire. The article in Wiki goes on to state, Michael Barkin, professor of political science at Syracuse University, posits that the idea of a reptilian conspiracy originated in the fiction of Conan the Barbarian, a great movie, by the way.
Crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and you hear the lamentation of their women.
The creator, whose name is Robert E. Howard. In his story, The Shadow Kingdom, published in Weird Tales in August 1929, this story drew upon theosophical ideas of the lost worlds of Atlantis, Lemuria. Madame Blavatsky, famous for her cultism and the writing of The Secret Doctrine, written in 1888, had a reference to, quote, dragon men, who once had a mighty civilization on Lemurian continent. Howard's serpent men were described as humanoids, with human bodies and snake heads, who were able to imitate humans at will, and who lived in underground passages and used their shape-shifting and mind-controlling abilities to infiltrate humanity. Without digressing too far, I think it's very important to remember that the Bible long before told you that there were things going on beneath your feet within the inner world. Don't forget, it was the witch at Endor that said, I see gods ascending. The article goes on to state, Clark Ashton Smith used Howard's, quote, serpent men in his stories, as well as themes from the infamous, if not famous, H.P. Lovecraft. And he, Howard and Lovecraft together, laid the basis for the mythos. In the 1940s, Maurice Doreal, also known as Claude Dawkins, wrote a pamphlet entitled Mysteries of the Gobi that described a, quote, serpent race with bodies like men but heads like a great snake, and an ability to take human form. These creatures also appeared in Doreal's poem, The Emerald Tablets, in which he referred to emerald tablets written by Thoth, an Atlantean priest king. Barkin, professor, asserts that in all likelihood Doreal's idea came from the Shadow Kingdom, and that in turn the Emerald Tablets formed the basis of David Icke's book, Children of the Matrix. This reptilian concept actually crosses many different genres of the paranormal, even crossing into the realm of alien abduction. Alien abduction narratives sometimes allege contact with reptilian creatures. When you look at the reports of the visuals of the alien contact, it is amazing how profoundly connected and reptilian that they look. This runs very deep, especially when you note the connection between Aleister Crowley and Lamb. A picture of a demon that he drew long before people were reporting the large, bug-eyed, soulless creature aboard the reported spaceships. In fact, they are always reported to be taken up. That's something to remember. But one has to wonder if the sensation is actually one going down into the inner earth. As we already mentioned, the witch at Endor, one will recall, saw the gods ascending. But without digression too much, there is a strange connection between the UFO abductions and the reptilian shapeshifters and visions that are being seen. When it comes to reptilian shapeshifters, as we've already mentioned, the one name that comes to mind, the household name among all conspiracy theorists, is David Icke. According to British conspiracy theorist David Icke, who first published on this theme in 1999 in a work called The Biggest Secret, tall, blonde, blood-drinking, shape-shifting reptilian humanoids from Alpha Draconis star system are now hiding in underground bases. They are the force behind the worldwide conspiracy against humanity. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a mouthful. It's absurd, it's silly, it's crazy talk. Unless it's true. Now, I'm not endorsing Icke, as I have already said, far from it. But it always amazes me how there is a thread of truth that seems to run through so many different aspects. The fact is that the earth is not as pseudoscience tells us. There is an inner world. There are inner world beings, and we do not know what fully happens. There may be some shred of truth that connects this whole thing. The article of Icke goes on to say, he contends that most of the world's ancient and modern leaders are related to these reptilians, including the dynasties of the Merovingians, the Rothschilds, the Bush family, and the British royal family. Icke's conspiracy theories now have supporters in up to 47 countries, and he has given lectures to crowds of up to 6,000 people. To be sure, this is one of the strangest and most fearful conspiracy theories. If it is true, what we are talking about is a race of sinister, ultra-dimensional beings that are reptilian in nature and yet hidden behind the scenes. For the most part, this idea never really enters the mainstream reality of most people. But occasionally there are moments when we are left to scratch our heads. There are these little moments when we are hit with something that is strangely out of our norm. And we have to ask ourselves, could this be? For example, in February of 2000, on the Opie and Anthony radio show, the comedian Louis C.K. jokingly asked former U.S. Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld a number of times if he and Dick Cheney were quote-unquote lizard people who enjoyed the taste of human flesh. Now, you have to give anybody some modicum of credit who has the gumption to ask the Secretary of Defense, are you a lizard person that enjoys the taste of human flesh? Amused by Rumsfeld's refusal to directly answer the question, CK suggested it is a possible admission of guilt. He went on to further muse that perhaps those who are lizard people cannot lie about it. When asked if they are lizards, they either have to avoid answering the question or say yes. You tell me, is there a laughter, a humor, just simply it's a silly little video and I'm not going to belittle myself to answer the question? Or is there something more in the audio, in the video, and the way in which Rumsfeld avoids the question that bothers you?
Actually, lizards who, I mean, literally, there's people that think they're lizards from outer space.
Yeah, that's true.
Who eat human flesh. I don't know if anybody's ever asked you directly, sir, but are you a lizard?
I don't think
Are
he's
you
a lizard.
actually? Can you just please give that a straight answer? Are you a lizard person?
Louis a little left-leaning,
No,
sir.
I'm not. Let him answer. Are you a lizard?
Here's the short answer.
Yeah.
I'm in New York City. I walk down the street. People walk up, shake hands, stop me. They want an autograph. Want to get a photograph with me. Go to eat last night at dinner, and Joyce and I were sitting there in the little Italian restaurant. and a man came up and said he'd like to buy my dinner, and I refused. And it turns out I paid for my dinner. The next thing I know, the waiter comes back and said the man insisted to pay for your dinner, and here's your canceled receipt for paying.
Oh, wow, that's very nice.
There's plenty of people that...
But
you didn't answer the question.
He's not going to
I think you're
dignify...
hanging around with the wrong people.
He's not going to dignify an answer to, are you a lizard, Louis?
Why not?
Because he's not a lizard.
What is the story about getting somebody paid for your dinner? I would pay for a lizard's dinner.
I think I understood the fact that there are people out there that appreciate what he's done as a leader. And
there's plenty of evidence that this guy is a well-decorated and appreciated American. And he has more credibility than almost anybody.
Exactly.
But I just want to know if he's a lizard.
He's not a
Okay. So maybe he didn't want to dignify the question. Maybe he thought it was below him. He didn't want to belittle himself. But it is odd that he couldn't simply say, no, I'm not. Of course, there is another supposed proof, and that is the proof of the Secret Service security guard. Now, the truth is, I've always had a hard time with this particular one, because if I were a reptilian shapeshifter from a dark dimension, assisting in ruling a global cabal, I don't know that I would want to work a security detail for Barack Obama. But it is a strange video. On March 4th, 2013, a video depicting a security agent with unusual features guarding a speech by U.S. President Barack Obama was spotlighted in a Wired report, the magazine Wired, about shape-shifting reptilian humanoids. What's fascinating is Wired will come up in another one of our show because, well, the Wired magazine is a very dangerous magazine itself. The video, easy to dismiss, but strange when it's watched.
4 years ago, I stood before you and said that Israel's security is sacrosanct. It is non-negotiable. That belief has guided my actions as president.
Even though at first sight he looks just like the average Secret Service spook, a series of odd features on his head, face, plus a very strange behavior and creepy movements, suggest something else. If it was not by the camera of the Jewish News One, which caught him from another angle, apparently shape-shifting into some sort of reptilian non-human form. Disregard all the distortions and image artifacts caused by post-edition zooming, and pay close attention to how his head features suddenly change. His ears, his nose, his chin, cheekbone, jaw and mouth are no longer looking human at all. Matter of fact, now he has a blatant non-human face. So what just happened?
It is easy to make excuses and to justify, or to make outright denial claims. But there is something deep and dark about this theory that seems to ring true, although unimaginable. The reality is there seems to be no end to the rabbit hole. Almost at any point where one scratches below the surface long enough, this strange theory of reality crops up in the most confounded of places. Rachel Greenspan wrote an article stating that on Christmas morning, an RV exploded in downtown Nashville. Do you remember that? Christmas morning 2020, an RV exploded in downtown Nashville, injuring 3 people and damaging 41 buildings. Authorities say it was Anthony Warner, 63 years of age, who was responsible for the explosion and died in what the FBI believes was a suicide bombing. A bombing, mind you, that accomplished nothing, did nothing, served no purpose, or so we're led to believe. What's fascinating is, before the bombing, Warner, whose motive has not been announced by authorities, sent packages to friends that included letters that alleged that lizard people were controlling the world. According to WTVF, a local news outlet in Nashville, the packages included several typed pages about conspiracy theories, as well as 2 USB drives. Wouldn't you like to know what was on those? But they reported that he believed the great problem facing us was that we were being ruled by lizard people. Well, it's easy to dismiss him. It's easy to dismiss the camera angle of the security guard and the security detail and say, well, that's a coincidence. It's easy to dismiss a crazy fella who drives his Winnebago downtown Nashville and blows up nothing but himself. But what are we to do with those who are not crazy? What are we to do with those who are not bombing anything, who are not agents of QAnon? What happens when a credible witness steps forward and states, yeah, there is something there and it's for real? Well, that has happened. And his name is Billy Corgan, the lead singer of the Smashing Pumpkins. Billy Corgan, the former lead singer of the band The Smashing Pumpkins, revealed on October 16th in an episode of the Howard Stern radio show that he witnessed a human shapeshift right before his eyes. Corgan states, Quote, I was with somebody once and I saw a transformation that I can't explain. It's a really messed up story. Suddenly I turned around and there's somebody else standing there. Stern replied, a different human? Did you say to that person, what did you just do here? Corgan stated yes, and they acknowledged it. Stern replies, and what did they say they were? From another planet? Corgan stated, they wouldn't explain.
What happened? Give me a for instance. I want to know.
I would love to have these experiences.
No, don't be embarrassed. Come on, share. Why not? We have to discuss these things.
Let's just say I was with somebody once and I saw a transformation that I can't explain.
The person transformed into something other than human.
Yes, I saw it. Were you on drugs? I was not. I was totally sober. Wow.
You were talking with. I'm asking you some questions. If you were talking to someone, and you're having a conversation like we are now, this close, and the person suddenly, not in a hallucination, they said to you, look, something's going to happen here. I'm going to morph into something else. And you're like, this is ridiculous.
That's not how it happened.
Give me a please. I want to see this.
Imagine you're doing something and suddenly you turn around and there's somebody else standing there.
A different human.
Sorta. It's hard to explain without going to detail. I'd rather not go into details.
But did you say to the person, what'd you just do here? That's
yes, and they acknowledged it.
And what did they say they were? From another planet?
They wouldn't explain.
Why not?
Again, without telling us, it's a really messed up story.
A famous person?
No.
As crazy as this all sounds, there's far more credibility to this in some circles than people want to believe. There is a very, very important book that every single person should read called They Walk Among Us. Because the fact of the matter is, whether it's the lead singer for Smashing Pumpkins or people that have had experiences in the night by themselves, they do walk among us. So what are we to make of this? Is this just another in a long line of scary stories told around campfires of life to keep us amused or even distracted? Or is there something or someone there in the shadows of power? Someone from another world, another place, another being ruling and guiding men under the snake-like hypnotism of their wicked agenda. We often look at things that take place in the world, events that occur, heinous crimes that are committed, and we say, how could they be so cold-blooded? Well, maybe the answer has been right before us all along. They are indeed cold-blooded.
Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made, and he said unto the woman, Yea, hath God said, Ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden? And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon his head. There go the ship. There is that Leviathan, whom thou hast made to play therein.